Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Forced of Reading author visit. My name is Christine Gillian Sullivan, and I'm a volunteer with the Ontario Library Association's Forced of Reading, Canada's largest recreational reading program. Each year, we have the incredible privilege of meeting a new group of talented authors, and this year's lineup is truly inspiring. We know that thousands of students will be tuning in to watch these sessions throughout the year, so whether you're joining us now or catching the recording later, we're so glad you're here. Today's session will have two parts. First, our nominee will share their presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions so we can get to know them and their work a little bit better. A quick reminder that voting for all Forrester Reading Awards happens in April. Personally, I like to recommend that everyone votes on April 23rd. Why? Well, that's World Book Day, so there's no better occasion to cast your ballot than on an international celebration of books and reading. Finally, our 2026 Forster Reading Festival and Digital Awards celebrations take place May 12th through 14th. You can find all the details at forestofreading.com. Of course, that's forest meaning trees and not forced meaning strength. So forestofreading.com. You got it. Now let's get started. We're delighted to have with us Gabrielle Prendergast, author of The Anxious Exile of Sarah Salt, nominated for a Silver Birch Fiction Award. Gabrielle is the award-winning author of numerous books for children and teens. After years of working in social welfare and the music and film industries, fun, Gabrielle began writing books when she became a mother so that she could work from home. She's the author of The Crosswood, The Werewood, and The Overwood in the Orca Current series, as well as Aftershock, Flash Flood, and Under Fire in the Orca Anchor series. She won the BC Book Prize for her YA sci-fi novel Zero Repeat Forever and the Westchester Award for her YA novel Audacious. Gabrielle lives in East Vancouver, British Columbia. Now, please join me in giving a warm Forster Reading welcome to Gabrielle Prendergast.
Hello, everyone. So honored and pleased to have been invited to this, and I am looking forward to getting to your questions. But first, I would like to just play a little video which talks a little bit about my work and my process, and answers the most common question that I get from readers. Hi there, I'm author Gabrielle Prendergast. I'm super thrilled to have been invited to make this video for the Forest of Reading, but I'm more thrilled to talk to readers like you all. One of the questions I get the most when I talk to readers is, where do you get your ideas? It's always a funny question for me because I get my ideas from everywhere. No matter where I am or what I'm doing, I find ideas. I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I got the ideas for each of my books. For my first book, Wicket Season, I found out that an editor I knew was looking for a book for young readers about the sport cricket. Since my husband is Australian and an avid cricket player, I pitched my idea for writing this book. My husband was very helpful with the research. For my next books, which were a duology, I had been reading a lot of novels in verse or poetry, and I wanted to write one. So I started writing poems inspired by my own teen years, semi-autobiographical, as they say. But soon the characters and story just took over. That happens a lot. Often the story I write is quite different from the one that I thought I wanted to write. For my next book, The Frail Days, my publisher was starting a line of books about teens in the performing arts. And when I was a teen, I was in a rock band, so I used that as inspiration for this book. Some of the scenes are pretty close to what actually happened, but a lot of the other scenes I just made up. Want to see me in my rock band? Well, I think you can see why I'm a writer and not a musician. For Pandas on the East Side, I was inspired by the title. My daughter and I had gone to see the movie Kung Fu Panda. And around the same time, she had just learned about the East Side and the West Side of Vancouver. She was only 4 years old. And one day she said, Kung Fu Panda on the East Side. And I thought that sounded like a good title. So then it became Pandas on the East Side. But I had to figure out what actually happened after that. For Pinch Me, when I thought of this idea first, Justin Bieber had just become a big star and he was only a teenager. And I wondered what it would be like for him if he had to go back to being a normal kid in high school. So that's what happens to the main character in Pinch Me. Around 2010, I was really into online science fiction art, as well as the show Battlestar Galactica, especially the Cylons. I really loved cyborgs, robots, and futuristic soldiers. But I had also just read Twilight because that was massively popular at that time. And I decided I wanted to write a book like Twilight, but with an alien cyborg soldiers instead of vampires. So that became my series Zero Repeat Forever and Cold Falling White. When I was growing up, Pluto was considered a planet, but a while ago it got demoted to dwarf planet. And my daughter was kind of mad about that. And she asked me, how small is Pluto compared to Earth anyway? And I showed her by comparing a golf ball to a pea. And that became this book, If Pluto Was a Pea. My daughter actually inspired a lot of my books. One day we were talking about how polar bears and penguins never meet despite living in similar climates, the Arctic and the Antarctic. And my daughter suggested that they have a party together, and that became Dear Polar Bears. Authors often get inspiration from other books. I read the young adult series The Folk of the Air by Holly Black, for example, and I loved it. So I wanted to write my own series about the fair folk or fairies. So I wrote my trilogy, The Fairy Woods, which is for younger readers. I've always wanted to write a book about a massive earthquake hitting Vancouver. It's something we talk about a lot here. We even do drills at school. When my publisher offered me a 3-book deal, it made sense to write 3 books about disasters. So Aftershock is about an earthquake, Flash Flood is about a flood, and Under Fire is about a wildfire. I saw this tweet back in 2020 that was like a game of how you find your literary book title. Literary just means serious and realistic. You have to use your current emotion, your favorite game, your middle name, and a spice you like. So I came up with The Anxious Scrabble of Sarah Salt. Yes, I'm boring. I love salt. I thought that was a pretty good title, and I did want to write a literary middle grade, so I thought I could use that title. Scrabble wasn't quite right, so I tried some different things and settled on exile. Then I had to figure out what it was about. I knew I wanted to write an epistolary novel, that is, a novel written in letters, so I did that too. What would your literary novel title be? You have to use the emotion that you feel the most and your favorite game. It can be like a board game or a video game or a sport, your middle name or your birth month, and a spice or sauce or seasoning that you like to put on food. Once you come up with your title, you can even design a book cover or even write a story based on it. Finally, for my latest book, I was inspired by one of my favorite books as a child, Go Dog Go by P.D. Eastman. And I tried the title with other animals, but I thought Go Sloth Go was the funniest because sloths are famously slow. So, do you have a favorite book? Could your favorite book inspire you to write your own story? These are some of the books that were my favorites when I was little. Now, my other favorite thing to do is answer questions. So now we're going to do that.
No, I was there and I wasn't. I love it. Oh, I love that you have Ferdinand in your inspirations. That's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite read alouds to read as a school librarian. It's such a wonderful, wonderful book. Before we jump to questions, I want to say congratulations on your nomination. We're so excited for you.
Thank
And
you.
I read the book over the holidays. I Loved it so much. I can't tell you. I so much of it resonated, and I think it's such a wonderful book on so many levels. I love that it focuses on family and community, and those can overlap, but they are also quite distinct at the same time. But also the notion of watching out, caring for people in our community, and the notion of a little girl or young girl, I guess, and her developing awareness of social justice issues in the world around her and how she can have a voice. And I think that was the most important part. She has a voice and she can be a change maker, and every one person can make a difference. It all accumulates. So there's so many wonderful themes in this book. I enjoyed it so much. I'm so eager for students to read it. Can you tell us a bit about what was the inspiration for this particular book? I love that you came up with the content of the book based on the title. Most people go the other way. The title comes last, but you came up with the title first, and that's fantastic. But what was the inspiration for the theme?
I wanted to, I guess I was inspired by, as I said, a lot of authors are inspired by other authors and what other authors are doing. And one of the things that I liked as a reader, both when I was young and now, is this idea of living in some sort of alternative arrangement, whether you're living on a boat or you're living in in an RV, or you've gone to the cottage for the summer, or you've had to move in with your grandmother, or all that kind of stuff. And when I was a kid, I was really into like orphanages and things like that. Um, and so I was trying to think of like what is a kind of an interesting place for her exile to take place. So I had the word exile. I could sort of figured, well, she's living not with her family, and I had worked out why. Um, but I wanted her to be living in some sort of interesting home.
Mhm.
And I am really into tiny homes, and not that I live in one, but I would.
But the
Um,
notion of it, yeah.
yeah, I like that. I love the shows about tiny homes,
Mhm.
watching the videos on YouTube and stuff. I just like them. And so, but then I didn't want it to be like just an ordinary RV because I thought that was kind of, a bit too familiar. But I'm really interested in some of the alternative housing that they're doing here in
Mhm.
Vancouver, which is based on shipping containers.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, let's go with that. So I did some research about shipping containers. And then it made sense to me for the shipping containers to actually be connected to alternative housing
Mhm.
and emergency housing and transitional housing. So then that kind of became the overriding subplot, I guess, of Sarah and her sister Abby's movement to create this alternative transitional housing uh, development. And it sort of all came from there. I will say that I pantsed this book, which is I just made it up as I went along. So I think when I started, I knew the reason that she was living with her half sister was because her brother was born prematurely,
Right.
and her parents needed to work, concentrate on that. And I knew that her half sister was involved in transitional housing. And that's pretty much the only detail that I had. So everything else
Love
that
it.
came along just sort of appeared to me on the page.
Amazing. How long would it have taken you to write the book from start to finish?
I started writing it in um 2021,
Right.
I think, or maybe 2020, and I finished it in 2022. I remember having discussions about it with my publisher in 2022. And then I guess we contracted it maybe in late 2022. So I think it took me a bit more than a year to write, which
Right.
is sort of average for me.
Right.
It depends. If I outline a book, sometimes I can finish it really quickly. But when I pants books, I make them up by the seat of my pants. It takes a lot longer.
I love
But I
it.
think they're better. So
They're more organic, right? Like you
I
write
don't,
on inspiration. Yeah.
I think so. I don't know.
Interesting. So you've done both. I like it. But I think I'd
Yeah.
be more of an outline person because it would keep me, I don't know, true to the outline. But I like the idea of pantsing it. Do you have any advice for any of our young readers who might want to become writers themselves? You've written quite a few different types of books as well. So advice for nonfiction or fiction for our young readers out there who might want to, draft a book of their own?
I think the best advice is to write something, choose something to write that you can finish, because
Mm.
otherwise you will do what I do, which is start novels and never finish them. So I have like probably a dozen
Wow.
novels that are half finished, quarter finished. Sometimes it's just a chapter. Sometimes I haven't even started writing. I've just started like
Wow.
outlining. It's in my head, whatever. And I think a lot of aspiring writers, we really privilege the novel in our world,
Mm.
right? Novels are kind of like the pinnacle of both reading and writing, which I think is problematic for a number of reasons. Um, but particularly for aspiring writers to privilege the novel, they've read a lot of novels and
Mhm.
they know novels, famous novelists like Rick Riordan and all those people, they so they think, oh, I'm going to write a novel, and then they just sit down and think they're going to
Uh,
write a novel, and
right.
it is the hardest thing that I have done, and I have birthed a child. So writing novels is, and I also have 3 university degrees.
Right.
Writing a novel is harder than getting a master's degree. It's
Mhm.
much harder. And also, your first novel will probably be terrible. Mine certainly is. So, it's quite disheartening. So, I would suggest starting with something that you know you can finish. And when I teach young writers, I often start with a haiku, which is a 17 syllable
Right.
poem.
Right.
I'm like, you guys can handle 17 syllables, right? And they can. I've
Right.
done this with 6-year-olds. They can finish. And a lot of times it's the first thing that they've ever finished.
Mm.
It's certainly the first creative work. Sometimes they've written like little reports for school, but so find something that you think you can finish and then get bigger from there. So start with a haiku and then maybe move on to a longer poem and then maybe a paragraph and then maybe a short story and then a novella and then maybe you'll be ready for a novel.
I love
I
it.
started writing my first novel when I was 10.
Oh, I love that. Oh, so early. You knew you were going to become a writer. I love that.
I did. In fact, I knew I wanted to be a writer before I even knew how to write. I used
Mhm.
to get my mother to staple pieces of paper together into little books, and I would
Wow.
scribble in them. And it was before I knew how to write, so I would have been about 4 years old probably. I
Right,
didn't know
right.
how to read even, so I could have even been younger.
Wow. I love of books from like the toddler years on. I love that. So speaking of finishing something, are you going to go back then? Are you planning to go back to some of those works that you haven't quite finished? Is it something that you would revisit, or are you going to work on something completely different now?
Well, I'm writing a book right now that my agent wants me to write, which is
Huh.
the first book for adults. So
Oh,
it's kind of a fantasy romance, and I'm writing that right now, and I hope I finish it. But I don't want to give up on writing for children.
mhm.
So I have another picture book coming out, and I have a young adult. I have a young adult book coming out in 2028 and a picture book coming out in 2027. I don't
Wow.
have anything coming out this year, 2026, which is sort of sad for me, but also good in a way because I can concentrate on writing.
Right, right.
But the books that I've abandoned, they might stay abandoned. I don't know. Sometimes I do go back to things. Zero Repeat Forever was like that. I started it in 2000, I think, and I didn't, and I abandoned it, and then I picked it back up in 2014 and finished it, and then I sold it in 2015. So,
Wow. It's a
but
process.
some of them I have abandoned for a long time.
Right, right. Ah, you never know. Circling back to The Anxious Exile of Sarah Salt, was there a passage that was particularly rewarding or, I don't know, uh, enjoyable to write? Or conversely, was there one that was most difficult to write? I'll let you decide.
Oh gosh, it was very difficult to get to where I needed to be towards the end, just in terms of I knew that I wanted Sarah to confront her own mortality, which is
Okay.
kind of a dark thing for a 10-year-old, but
Right,
that's the
right.
kind of child that she is. And I didn't really know how I was going to do that. I don't want to spoil it, but it was going to
Hmm.
be darker than it is.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
glad I didn't. But then I
Okay.
had to figure out a way of doing that and without it being too dark.
Right, right.
So
Okay.
that was quite challenging. And it was also challenging. I think one of my favorite parts is where Sarah tells her brother that the thing that's wrong with her, what she perceives as being
Hmm.
wrong with her, has a name, which is selective mutism,
Right.
and how she talks about hating the fact that it has a name.
Hmm.
And the way that it's been that she's kind of been labeled with it, and the way that people don't listen when her parents say she has selective mutism, and then they go, oh no, she's just a little shy. And
Right.
like all the misunderstandings and the twisty kind of chaotic way that outsiders understand neurodivergent kids,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that used to drive me crazy when I was young too, like people sort of saying things about me like,
As
oh,
you're
you're
standing
such a
there. Yeah.
chatterbox and things
Right.
like that. And I'd just be
Right.
like, now I know I have ADHD. I can't shut up. Like, but we didn't know that in the
Right.
80s, right? So, but it made me crazy. Like,
The labeling.
yeah, the
Right.
labeling and the assumptions and the questions of um and having to tell people about you even as an adult. I don't like that, right? So
Right. Right.
the the scene, the chapter where she tells Birdie Oliver that this issue she has a name. It's called
Hmm.
selective mutism, and then she details the people that she can talk to and the people that she
Right.
can't talk to. I
Right. Right.
really loved giving her that space
Hmm.
to be able to. And my editor, we talked about it, like there was this question of like, should we introduce this earlier? And I was like, no, this is really important for her development and the process that she's going through writing these letters to Oliver.
Right. Right.
um it's important that I give her time to arrive at that place,
Right.
and then divulge that, because that is, I feel, the respectable way to live.
Hmm.
Like an example is like I lived in Australia for 12 years, right? And I
Wow.
have this accent, I sound Canadian or American. And
Hmm.
often people, I would ask for like, can I have a cheese sandwich? And they'd be like, are you American? And I'd be
Right.
like, can we not get to know each other a little bit before I
Yeah.
have to tell you my whole life story? You know what I
True.
mean?
True. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
certainly the case with people of color who are like, where are you from? Like everyone's
Right.
always bugging them about that. And it's like, it's not that I don't want to tell you
Yeah.
about um my
Your
s-
background.
my
Yeah.
mind,
Yeah.
how it works, or my health, or
Right.
my background. It's just that I want to warm up to you first.
Right. Right.
And so I felt like that was important for Sarah to be like, she tells Oliver when she's ready to tell him.
Right. And we're not defined by our labels necessarily because we're
Yeah.
not any one thing. In this past answer, you actually touched on two things I wanted to ask you about or comment on early in the book. And it's so beautiful. It's the power of your writing. It's one short sentence and it resonated with me so much. And you were talking about mortality. And right at the beginning, as Sarah starts writing letters to her newborn brother, who, like you said, is born prematurely, she writes to him, please don't die. And I
Yeah.
thought that was such a powerful, it's three words, such a powerful sentence, so short, but so powerful. And it really resonated. And that's just, it's testimony to the power of writing, right?
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing sentence. It was so powerful. The other
Thank
thing
you.
you touched on was Sarah identifying or talking about her selective mutism. And again, it doesn't define the entirety, sorry, of her being. But at one point in the book, she's disappointed with herself because she can't express herself at a moment that it mattered to speak up and whatnot. And she says, I'm so disappointed in myself. And the next sentence says, except that I'm not. And I love that so much because that was a self-acceptance of it's okay. In that moment, she wasn't able to speak, but it's okay. And she had to accept that. And it's part of a larger self acceptance of how she's wired. And we are all wired differently. But that was such a beautiful passage because she accepted that in that moment, she wasn't able to speak. And that's okay. It was
Right.
perfectly fine. She was at
Yeah.
first disappointed, and then she says, except that I'm not. And that was beautiful. And I have to tell you, those two passages resonated so much with me. It's such a moving book. I kept going back and making notes about different pages and things that struck me. But there's so much we could talk about. We'd be here all day. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. I can't wait for our readers to enjoy it. I
Thank you.
wanted to say, as we wrap up, I want to say congratulations again. And our final question is perhaps the most important one. How does it feel to be nominated in the Forest of Reading this year among Canada's best and brightest authors?
Oh, it's really such an honor, and I'm so excited the way that this book is being received. That people are feeling moved by it and feeling excited about it and seeing those like that little detail that you just mentioned. It's so important to me to for people, not just children, but for people in general to accept their limitations and as part of them, but also as still a limitation. It's like what you said, she's disappointed, but also not. It's like,
Mhm.
it's not ideal to be selectively mute or to have ADHD or to have whatever issues that you have. That's not ideal, but it's also not against the law.
Right,
It's
right.
just part of life. So it's both a recognition of your limitations or the issues that you have, but also an acceptance of them. And that's really very much what Sarah is all about. So it's thrilling to me that people are seeing that and getting that from the book. But also, the like official recognition, that's nice too. So being nominated for awards and, getting good reviews and things, that's also nice. But I'm very, very excited to come to the Forest of Reading Festival. And really honored to be chosen as a nominee.
I love it. We're so excited for you. So I hope that means you'll be joining us in Toronto in May.
I will.
I love it. So she'll be coming from Vancouver to Toronto, my friends. We can't wait to meet her in person. Thank you so much, Gabrielle, for sharing your time, your stories, your creativity, your inspiration with us today. What an incredible opportunity for our Forest of Reading participants across the country to connect with you. And again, my friends, these sessions will be available online until June 30th, which is wild. It takes us to the end of the school year. Hard to believe on this cold winter day as we're chatting today, but hey, it's coming. Summer will be coming. Friends, don't forget to visit forestofreading.com. Again, that's forestofreading.com to see the full lineup of upcoming author and illustrator sessions, activities, and everything you'll need for this year's Forest program. Keep reading, keep exploring new stories, and we can't wait to see you at the next visit. Bye, everyone.